All right. We have been seeing for a number of years, right? The opinion that men looking at women, or this whole sort of weird notion that if we do that, it's somehow this massive detriment and we're being terrible people. I decided to look into it a bit, being a Christian and wanting to sort of understand more about what God had intended for us as man and woman in this world. And I wanted to get into that because I think I think it actually goes a little bit deeper than just simply just the DEI, ESG stuff that we actually have going on. Now, this is Proverbs 5:18-19 from the New King James Version. 18 is, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth. 19 is, a loving deer and a graceful doe. Let her hoo-hoos satisfy you at all times and always be enraptured with her love, right? And we're going to start off with that. So we've been seeing for a while in the industry the slow and absolute purposeful implementation of removing sexy women, right? It's so weird that even women who are trying to feel empowered about being sexy are cancelling themselves out. For what purpose? It doesn't make any sense. Unless you realize that this goes against everything in regards to biblical truth, right? So we're going to look into a couple of things here. This was over on enrichingrelationships.org. So what does the Bible say about marital sex? Of course, the most important thing to take away from this is that if you're wanting to have lots of sex, either abstain from it or find someone that you want to marry and that they and you also want to have lots of sex together. The importance of sex is it goes a lot deeper than just the initial feeling of satisfaction. There is a bond that is created here, both parties, especially with women. And that if you keep sharing this bond again with multiple people, it eventually breaks down and takes time to heal to get that back. So it is very important to keep that with that one person. And of course we know this because if we go back, decades and decades ago, right, where marriages last a lot longer, the divorce rate was way lower, if anything. And that's because the fundamentals of what the Bible was teaching about staying together, right, and finding that very special person, and then being able to sort of work through all the issues with that person instead of just upping and leaving when things get too difficult. All of this matters and creates a lot of strengthening and bonding through times of trouble. And that's, again, another reason why sex is such an important factor of any relationship. It's important in the relationship, not to just sleep around. The enjoyment of a body, this writer writes here, one of the biggest cultural stereotypes is men who ogle women. Well, it is a stereotype that actually has quite a bit of foundation behind it. It is commonly seen and portrayed from what happens on the street to what is shown in movies and TV. And it is not God's plan, is what they show. So you see this, right? You see this, and we've been hearing this for the longest time. Oh, we're just objectifying women and stuff like that, right? But we are meant to find, and keep in mind, we are meant to find each other attractive, right? We are meant to be amazed and essentially drunk love, if you will, on how the other person looks. Obviously, we don't act on that with everyone. We only act on that within our partner, right? But let's continue. Jesus clearly taught that looking at a woman in lust was the same as adultery, Matthew 5. However, put into biblical perspective, the male enjoyment of the female body can be both godly and enriching. Unfortunately, because of sin and sinful behaviors, it can be challenging to appreciate the rightness of a husband loving the view of his wife's body, right? We often heard wives express that it really bothers them the only time that their husband touches them is when it's in a sexual manner. It may really bother them easily then when their husbands come excited, if you will, when they see their wife naked or when they get into bed lightly clothed or naked. It has caused women to stop dressing in front of their husbands. For others, they wear their pajamas like protective armor. There can be many different things that influence this, and I firmly believe this. Like, women can have bad experiences with men, that sort of thing. and so they feel ashamed of their body, or they feel like they are just, what we've heard for many years, a piece of meat, right? Also, they might have made derogatory comments about their body or weight. If any of these things are true, it would be important to get help with them and talk openly about them. It is important to put the male interest in the female body into biblical perspective, and keep in mind this also works for women viewing men as well. This is not a one-way street. This is a two-way street, right? But being the man, right, talking about how we are seeing women being removed from video games and whatnot, it's coming from that perspective, but we're going to get to that. For when it is right, it is very right, the male interest in the body. After God created Eve, God saw all that he had made and said it was very good. Not just good, very good. We see the lover in the Song of Songs, which is over here in the Song of Solomon, which is in the Bible. Lover songs speak about how he wants to hear his beloved's voice and how he wants to see her form, her shape, and her countenance, her appearance, according to different translations. In Proverbs 5:19 is mentioned. It talks about how captivating, intoxicating, and satisfying the wife's love and huhuza to her husband. God has created in men a love for the view of the female body and form. He even puts it in his holy word. It is good and right and godly for a husband to be drawn to looking at, touching his wife's body, both naked and clothed. Sam Lang, author of 5 Senses of Romantic Love, says it so well. The lover's poetic, rhapsodic language expresses his fascination and arousal. It gives the honor to the entirety of the the divinely given beauty without hint of demeaning vulgarity. The husband asks his beloved to see her form. Most men will readily identify this with this statement and with this sentiment. They long to see their wife unclothed. Wives, have you noticed that your husband will stop whatever he is doing to get a glimpse of your body? There's a bit of a meme that has gone around for a while about, if the man is winning the argument, women just lift your shirt up. It's as easy as that, right? It is as easy as that. Guys, have you ever thought for a second, why is it that we find 2 lumps of fat just, absolutely intoxicating? You ever ask yourselves that? It's just 2 lumps of fat with a couple of buttons, right? Why? Why, right? If you are having an argument in the middle of what you happen to change your clothes, he will completely lose his train of thought. That's true. He will wander into the bathroom while you're bathing just to get a look at you. Rather than resenting this as juvenile and boorish, and this is the interesting part. This is what they have been trying to do for the longest time, right? Women, either through bad experiences or being taught the wrong thing, are being told that men that look at them with lust, it's wrong. But you want your partner to do that the same way that you would want your woman to look at you with lust as well, right? Again, this is a two-way street. But we have seen here very anti-godly people trying to take this away, which is why it also feels so unnatural. We have the people out there going, "Oh, you're just a prawn addict. You just want to have your prawn and stuff like that." It's like, no. We actually appreciate the female body, right? It is built into the very fabric of who we are as people to be able to look at someone and go, "Yes, I desire them. I want to be with them." Now, we've had society and the people that are against God been teaching us for the longest time it's okay to sleep around, to share your seed, to basically do whatever you like. But this breaks down your soul. This breaks down who you are. And it makes it, like I said earlier, very difficult because your bond through sex is extraordinarily powerful. It is like, almost unfathomable. I'm trying to get the word out. Unfathomably. Is that the right word? Can I say that? Gigantic. Massive. Huge. You can barely describe it. Right. I have to figure out how to say that properly. To try and explain the type of bond that is created when you find that right person, right? Come to appreciate the sight of your unclothed form as one of the greatest pleasures and joys your husband in his life. For women, it is important to make the distinction between the objectification in the world of the female body and the genuine godly appreciation of her body as seen in the scriptures. A husband's enjoyment of his wife's body is from God. You come to my channel. Fate's crazy. You know the difference between fate being crazy and the truth? It's about 6 months. However, husbands, if the only time you touch her is to squeeze her hoo-hoos and her butt, this will not feel like godly enjoyment. This lady had a female client explain to me that when she was dressing, she would love if her husband would come up from behind her while she was naked, wrap his arms around her and tell her what a good mom she was. Not that she was beautiful, not that he loved her body, but that he wrapped his arms around the body. So he so loved to see and touch. He told her how much he loved and appreciated the woman she was and what she gave to their family. This is such a delicate balance. Women love to feel admired by the men God has given to love them. They do love to feel beautiful, but if that beauty is not admired in the context of the whole beauty of the woman, it can lead to unintended confirmation of that message she's been hearing from Satan, that she is just another body. Take note, and that she is only wanted for sex, and that the woman is not known and valued. So what have we been seeing for a long time? We've been seeing ungodly women in positions, and for some reason gay men that think they have a position on what makes a straight man attracted to a woman. Push this narrative that, any time that a man looks at a woman, it is this horrible, evil thing, right? Which is simply not true. Now, like with anything out there, there's always going to be bad apples, of course. There's always going to be bad apples. But you don't let that spoil the whole bunch, okay? It's very important, okay? So husbands, imitate the lover. Look at what he says about his beloved when he describes the body of his beloved. He talks about her eyes, hair, teeth, lips, mouth, temple, navel, waist, neck, and boobies. In Proverbs 4:1-15, 7-1:9, he even tells her that her breath smells good and her legs are graceful, that her voice is sweet. And that's basically like, this is sort of my view. Like when you have that one person, you are enraptured from top to toe. Top to toe, right? And you are just like, and that's not just because of the physical, it's also because of the love that you share as well, right? That old saying when they say love is blind, maybe that's sort of true. I don't think it's true, but it's not blind. It's just that you're connected on this deep level, right? That when she says or goes, well, I'm fat, I got some tummy fat, or I'm a bit older now, got some white hair, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because the foundation has been laid. You have built upon that foundation with strength and sturdiness, and you just love her for her, regardless, right? Keep in mind that like people, as you get older, things change, your bodies change, lots of things change, right? And this is something that the younger generation aren't taught anymore because they're taught, well, if things get too hard, you just get out and find somebody else. If all you focus on is the hoo-hoos and the butt, you have not followed this incredible example found in God's word. You may be obeying God's word in reading it daily, in reaching out to the lost, in being a loving, giving father and a good provider. But if you wish to touch the heart and soul of your wife, your words to her must be full of what Proverbs 31, how faithful and hardworking she is, what a great hostess she is, and what a great mother and wife. And Song of Solomon, her physical beauty in its entirety. Right? And this also works for the men in reverse as well. Right? The Song of Songs in 1-16, 3-4, and 5-10-16, she talks about how his head, her hair, well, I don't have any hair anymore, eyes, cheeks, lips, arms, and legs. She calls him handsome, radiant, ruddy, and outstanding. She compliments his arms with gold and his body of polished ivory. I don't have any polished ivory. Maybe some roughed balsa wood. She talks about the kisses of his mouth. She delights to be with him and talks in detail about his affection and care for her. She shares for a very revealing phase at the end of the book. I have become in his eyes like one bringing contentment. 8:10. How does he come to view her in this way? Now, this is a two-way street. I've mentioned a couple of times this now, and the reason for that is very simple, because what it also talks about in this article is the fact that we are supposed to be good stewards of each other's body, right? In Corinthians 1, 7, 33 to 34, but a married man is concerned with how he can please his wife. A married woman is concerned with how she can please her husband. Do not be with someone if you don't want to do that. We are supposed to have sex. We are supposed to feel pleasure. We have these things. These are given to us by God. These things, right? These things are supposed to be enjoyed with each other when you have found that one person, right? The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to the husband. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent or for a time, or you may devote yourselves to prayer, then come together again, and so Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Yeah, so if someone gets sick or something happens, right, you know, obviously there's certain things that are going to stop or slow down. So a lot of the time we're taught in society, oh, look somewhere else. Oh, this will freshen things up. You know, you can't go without being satisfied. No, you should be turning still to your partner. You know, maybe turn to prayer if that's your thing. Distract yourself until that time passes and still be there, because at the end of it, it's going to be even more amazing because you went through this journey together. The wife's body does not belong to her alone, but also to her husband. In the same way, the husband's body does not belong to him, but also to his wife. Corinthians 7:4. These current scriptures in 1 Corinthians 7 are some of the most specific and helpful and misunderstood scriptures of the Bible of sex. So let's go over a few important points. Now, what this also leads into, which is also this thing here, it talks about the stewardship. So you are supposed to, you know, there's something in the Bible that they use. It talks about it in here. It's 1 Corinthians 7 is also often used to demand or command sex. You ever heard anyone, some of these feminists will probably use this one, right? This is in opposition to these very scriptures and to their overall use of authority in the Bible. If God has delegated to the wife authority over her husband's body, how is she supposed to use or wield that authority? If God has delegated to the husband authority over his wife's body, how is he supposed to use or wield that authority? Jesus taught that the disciples were not to lord it over others the way that the Pharisees did. Instead, that was in Matthew 20, 25, 26. Instead, a leader is to be a servant. So when we are given authority over each other's bodies, we are to use that authority as Jesus taught, as a servant, not making demands or being selfish. Right? For many couples, when they examine these scriptures, it puts into command not to deprive one another into a different perspective. If a husband or wife ends up using the scripture to say, you're depriving me, they may be using the scriptures as a club or a weapon, much like a Pharisee would. If a wife or husband continues to deprive their spouse of sex out of selfishness, then they are not being a good steward of the spouse's body, right? So, your goal, whichever sex, is to be the best steward for their body. You are the protector. You are there designed to make them happy, to please them, to take care of them in the exact equal opposite way that they are doing it. Well, not opposite, but the equal way that they should be doing it for you, right? That's biblical. Okay? And just like we find with a lot of stuff when it comes to the Bible, things get twisted and turned around to be used for their very own selfish narrative, which is what we're finding when it comes to gaming and whatnot, right? Also, if you look into the Song of Solomon, there's a lot of verses here. Song of Solomon, also known as the Song of Songs, is a book in the Bible believed to have been written by King Solomon. It is considered one of the most beautiful and mysterious books in Scripture. The book contains poems that are said to depict an intimate relationship between two lovers. So I want you to think about this for a second. When the people say, oh, you're just a porn addict and stuff like that, you're actually not. They're the addicts. They're the addict to porn. You are biblical. Right? We have been given these senses and these feelings to find that one person, to be able to enjoy that person and spend the rest of our life with that person in its totality. All of it. All of it. Right? That's why they don't want you to have sex immediately. That's why they want you to wait. Because by the time you finally get married, right? And even if the sex isn't great initially, again, just like everything else in the relationship, you work together to build that up. We have been taught as a society, oh, you know, try before you buy, that sort of thing. But the problem with that is that nobody tries anymore, right? If you love someone, and you're infatuated with them. And then you get there and they're like lasting for like 10 seconds as soon as you have sex, right? Although I have seen some women, they find that as apparently, not in the negative way, but I've seen some lately say that apparently that's what do they call that? They find it a compliment if a man can't last once they finally get around to doing the deed after doing a whole bunch of stuff prior to it, because they feel like they just can't control themselves, right? So I can kind of see both sides, right? And then you got the other side of the women wish the men would last a lot longer. Or maybe it's more to the point that the man should be a lot more sort of indulging of his wife's satisfactions, and then vice versa as well. But ultimately, the reason why they want you to hold off on having sex is because, you know, it is such a strong bonding material when it comes to the relationship that, you know, everything else should be the foundation before it, right? And then once you get that foundation there, once you eventually get married and have sex, then that foundation can be built upon. So if you're not very good in the bed, if you're not very experienced, that's okay. Just like the rest of your relationship, you are growing together, right? You're not supposed to be some expert prawn actor, you know, when you get into the sheets, right? The goal is to go, what can I do to satisfy my woman? What can the woman do to satisfy the man? And that should be it. But we have had society for a very long time twist this around to make out that men looking at women, and we're not talking about those idiot men, ones that wolf whistle and crap like that. We're talking about just your man looking at your body and going, that's my breakfast, lunch, dinner, 11C's second breakfast, you know, that's all it for me. Because they love you. They desire you. They want to pleasure you and please you. And the same way should be in reverse. It should absolutely be in reverse as well. Again, this is not a one-way street, right? So, verse about love. Scarcely had I passed them when I found him, whom my soul loves. I held him and would not let him go until I brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her who conceived me, right? These are all really good, right? So if you actually want some very, very beautiful biblical type stuff for love things, these are here. But going back to why the purpose of this video, because they have taken all of this away from you, right? We have it in games, right? And you can't say, well, you know, then we shouldn't be looking at women in this way. Okay. Then we shouldn't have the men be portrayed in a certain way either. You can't have it both ways, right? You can't just have the men being attractive towards the women, or sort of alphabet agencies, and then not do it for the women. Sorry, do it for the men, right? With the women. But biblically speaking, there's a reason why we find each other attractive, right? It's inbuilt right into the very depth of our soul. This is how it works, right? But not in a perverted way, not in some disgusting way, not in some, oh, I'm just a creep, right? Which is what lefties and communist types and all these weirdos out will like to tell you. No, it's actually built into us for the very fabric of what we're supposed to do and share with that person when we get married, in the relationship to getting married, right? So I just thought I'd share that. I find this stuff extraordinarily fascinating, everything biblical, to be honest. I'm actually looking to set up a biblical channel with some of the other folks from my Discord as well. So if you're interested in that, I'll let you guys know. But always ask questions, right? If you have any questions about anything, always ask questions. And that's where we are right now. We started asking questions about why are they doing this to women? Why are they masculinizing women? They are trying to pervert God's creation. They are trying to pervert the truth for their own, essentially, satanic needs. Because everything that I've just talked about is biblical. It is God's purpose. What they're doing is satanic. It is trying to pervert God's teachings and the way that we are viewing things for their own selfish needs. And of course, people being people have also corrupted parts of that and say it in the name of God. Oh, well, this is what you're supposed to do for me. Nah, you can leave that stuff to other religions, right? Well, they actively actually push that sort of narrative. Christian? There's nothing in the Bible that suggests that or even hints at that whatsoever. And it's very important to remember. Anyway, guys, catch you next time.